Welcome back. Today we are stepping into some incredibly deep waters. We're looking at a concept that really forms the bedrock of moral philosophy, of theology, and frankly of the way human beings organize reality itself. We're talking about judgment. But before you picture, a courtroom or a gavel or some date on a calendar far off in the future, I want you to just pause.
Right. Because the source material we're working with today, divine justice and the universal law of requital, it asks us to completely dismantle that traditional image. It suggests that if you're viewing judgment solely as a future event, you might be missing the most critical part of the picture.
Exactly. The premise here is it's a radical shift in perspective. The text argues that judgment is not merely a future courtroom scene. It's an active, operational law of the universe. It's described almost like physics, like gravity. Gravity isn't something that waits to act on you until next Tuesday. It's acting on you right now, holding you in your chair. This source argues that divine justice works the exact same way.
And that's where the existential weight of this deep dive really hits home, isn't it? If judgment isn't just a distant date, a someday, but is instead a continuous state of being, well, how does that change the way we breathe? How does it change the way we think or the micro choices we make when we think no one is watching?
That is the question we're going to explore. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack what the text calls the profound duality of judgment. We have two main dimensions to cover. First, the eschatological event, the final day that most people are familiar with. But second, and perhaps more surprisingly, the immediate reality, this idea of an ever-present recorder.
And I think it's important as we step into this to maybe invite you, the listener, to approach this with a specific mindset. The text itself invites us to use intellectual humility and spiritual openness. We're moving away from the idea of miracles that break the laws of nature. Instead, the focus here is on sunat-Allah, the strictly unchanging laws of God.
Which implies that the spiritual world is just as structured.
Just as rational.
And cause and effect based as the physical world. Yes. It's a compelling framework because it removes that magic element that often alienates the rational mind and replaces it with system. So let's unpack this profound duality. The source material makes a distinction that I think is really helpful. It separates the concept into dimension A and dimension B. Dimension A is the final day, the eschatological event. We'll get to that. But dimension B is described as the immediate reality.
And this is the part that really shifts the paradigm. We're conditioned, culturally and maybe even biologically, to think in terms of delays. We tend to think of life as the test and then death as the grading period. There's a gap, a lag time between the action and the reaction. But this text says, no, that is an illusion. It argues that God is simultaneously the supreme judge of the future and the ever-present recorder of the now.
The text is very specific here. It says that every action produces an immediate corresponding consequence within the moral operating system of the cosmos. I just love that phrasing, moral operating system.
It's powerful.
It suggests that the universe is hard-coded with justice. It's not an add-on. It's the kernel of the code.
It is. And just think about the psychological impact of that. If there's an ever-present recorder, it transforms the mundane. It means moral responsibility is an active component of daily existence. It's not about surveillance.
Right. It's not a camera in the sky waiting to catch you slipping out.
Exactly, which is a very human, sort of authoritarian way to view it. It's about significance. It means nothing is wasted. Every choice, no matter how small, becomes an act of self-judgment.
An act of self-judgment. That is a powerful turn of phrase. It puts the agency squarely back on the individual. It suggests we aren't waiting for a verdict. We're writing the verdict with every single action. We're drafting the document that will eventually be read back to us.
Precisely. And this is where the source creates a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. It argues that just as we have physical laws, thermodynamics, gravity, we have moral laws. You can't touch a hot stove without an immediate physical consequence. The burn happens now, not later. And this text argues you cannot commit an act of injustice without an immediate spiritual consequence, even if that consequence isn't immediately visible to the naked eye. The damage to the self, the darkening of one's perspective, that happens in the instant the deed is done.
To really appreciate how unique this perspective is, the source material actually takes a moment to survey the global landscape. It contrasts this specific Quranic view with other major systems to highlight what it calls the universal law of consequence. It's interesting because it shows this isn't some isolated idea, it's a human obsession.
It is a fascinating comparison. It really shows that humanity has always been searching for this order. We have this innate need to believe that actions have weight. We crave a universe that makes sense.
Right. So Looking at the source's breakdown, it mentions Christianity first. In traditional Christian theology, the focus is heavily on the Last Judgment at the end of time. It's a very linear progression of history toward a final resurrection, and then a judgment based on faith and deeds.
Then you have Judaism, specifically regarding the high holy days like Rosh Hashanah. There's this beautiful concept of an annual cycle repentance and a yearly judgment where you sort of reset the clock. It's cyclical. It acknowledges that humans drift and we need a structured time to realign before the book is sealed for the year.
And then you look at the Eastern traditions mentioned in the text, Hinduism and Buddhism. They operate on karma. This is less about a judge and more about a mechanism. Cause and effect, your actions shape your rebirth. It's a natural law. It's impersonal in a way. If you put your hand in the fire, you get burned. It's not personal. It's just physics.
And here is the synthesis that the source proposes. It suggests the Quranic view, specifically this concept of Yawm al-Dīn, actually bridges these. It has the final day, that event horizon like the Abrahamic traditions, but it also has the immediate consequence, the mechanics of it, which resonates so strongly with the idea of natural law or karma.
So it's a kind of hybrid model.
Yes, the text defines Yawm al-Dīn not just as Judgment Day, but as the ultimate expression of a continuous universal law of consequence. It's the synthesis of the personal and the mechanical. It describes a universe that's governed by a sovereign, a personal God, but a universe that also operates with the precision of a clock. It's a universe that cares, but it doesn't bend its own rules to accommodate our whims.
Which brings us directly to the mechanism itself. The source calls this the Law of Requital, or in Arabic, Jazāʼ. This is really the core of that physics of morality we touched on earlier.
The term Jazāʼ is so crucial here. The source describes it not as a passive threat, the wait until your father gets home kind of thing, but as an active principle. It's cause and effect. It translates to return or compensation, but in a way that implies absolute exactitude.
The analogy used is striking. It says, just as physical laws govern planetary orbits or chemical solubility, this moral law governs human outcomes. It implies that if you build a society on corruption, it will collapse. Not because God is angry and strikes it down with lightning from a clear blue sky, but because structurally corruption causes fragmentation. It's organic. It crumbles because the binding agent justice has been removed.
That word organic is key. The text speaks of energies that shape our immediate reality. When we do good acts of justice, compassion, truth, it creates organic flourishing. It binds things together. It creates cohesion. When we engage in corruption or oppression, it causes disintegration. These aren't just checks on a list, they are kinetic forces.
So if I lie to a friend, I'm not just breaking a rule. I'm introducing an energy of disintegration into that relationship. The consequence is immediate. The erosion of trust. Even if the punishment or the final breakup happens later, the lie itself is the damage.
Exactly. The erosion is the requital in motion. And the source gets very, very granular with this. It cites Surah Al-Isra. Whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it.
An atom's weight.
Yeah.
We use that phrase so loosely, but let's really look at that. An atom is fundamental. It's invisible to the eye, yet it makes up everything.
It implies that absolutely nothing is trivial. In a world of big data, we might understand this better now than ever before. We know that thousands of tiny, invisible data points can create a perfect profile of who we are. This is spiritual big data. A fleeting thought, a small kindness to a stranger, a moment of restraint when you're angry. These are the building blocks.
And the source notes a specific word in that verse, yarahu, which translates to see it. It doesn't say it will be read to him. It says he will see it.
Which suggests an experiential reality. You will experience the reality of that atom's weight. The final day is just the high-definition display of all these atomic moments. If you built a life out of atoms of kindness, your reality will look one way. If you built it out of atoms of selfishness, it will look entirely different. You are literally constructing your future reality atom by atom right now.
This leads us right into the architecture of self-judgment. If we are building this reality, where is the blueprint kept? The source references Surah Al-Isra to explain how this accountability is stored. It mentions a deed being fastened to his neck.
It's such a visceral image, isn't it? Fastened to his neck. It just completely challenges the idea of an external prosecutor. Usually we think of the evidence being in a file cabinet somewhere else. It says, no, the deed is attached to you. It's an integral part of your being. You carry your choices the way you carry your own skin.
And then the text says the individual is told, sufficient is yourself against you this day as an accountant. Oh, that's haunting, actually. You are your own judge.
It's profound existentialism. It suggests that judgment is a mirror. When the veil is lifted, you aren't arguing a case before a tribunal. You're not hiring a defense attorney. You are confronting the reality of what you became. You are carrying your choices with you, physically and spiritually. If you have warped your own soul with greed, you have to look at that warped shape. No one is doing it to you. You did it to yourself.
And that connects directly to another verse the source highlights from Surah Yasin. You will not be recompensed except for what you used to do. The source calls this the logical payment for the moral currency spent.
Moral currency, I like that. It reinforces the rationality of the system. Absolute justice means getting exactly what you paid for. No more, no less. If you spent your life buying short-term pleasure at the cost of long-term integrity, the system delivers exactly that result. It prevents the victim mentality. You can't say, why is this happening to me? The system answers, this is the logical sum of your inputs.
I want to zoom out a bit. We've talked about the individual atom and the personal, neck, but the source also talks about the establishment of the system itself. This brings us to the phrase Maliki Yawm ad-Din from the opening chapter of the Quran.
Master of the day of recompense.
Right, and the source breaks this down linguistically. Malik implies supreme sovereignty. Din is defined here specifically as the principle of recompense. But what got my attention is that the source divides this into two spheres, societal din and cosmic din.
This is such a critical distinction because it grounds these high-flying concepts right back into our communities. Societal din refers to this life right now. It says that when a community actually lives by divine law, prioritizing justice, compassion, equity, they experience collective betterment right here on Earth.
So a just society isn't just following rules to get into heaven later. A just society actually works better. It flourishes.
Exactly. It functions. It aligns with that operating system we talked about earlier. If you run a machine according to the manual, it runs smoothly. If you throw sand in the gears in justice, inequality, it grinds to a halt. And the Thor says this societal justice is a symbolic heralding of the ultimate justice.
That gives so much meaning to social justice work. It suggests that fighting for justice now is an act of alignment with the frequency of the universe.
It is. It's an attempt to bring the cosmic din into the societal sphere. The cosmic din is the final reckoning, the universal application of that same law. And the source puts it beautifully. The justice we fail to achieve in this world is guaranteed in the next. It's a comfort to the oppressed, but it's also a directive to the oppressor. You might escape the societal court, but you cannot escape the cosmic physics.
Now, we have to talk about the event itself. We've established the law, the mechanism, the recording. But the source material does address the event horizon. That moment, everything changes. It discusses the sounding of the trumpet mentioned in Surah Al-Zumar.
And here's where the analytical guide in you will really appreciate the source's approach. It explicitly interprets this rationally. It moves away from the a cartoonish image of an angel sitting on a cloud blowing a brass instrument.
It does. It says the trumpet symbolizes the suspension of current reality's physical laws. It represents the withdrawal of time, matter, and gravity.
Think about a computer simulation ending. The code that sustains the environment, gravity, time, space, is simply withdrawn. The trumpet is the signal of that cessation. It is the stop command on the physics engine.
The text describes it as a terrifying finality. It says, whoever is in the heavens and whoever is on the earth will fall dead. Then it will be blown again, and at once they will be standing.
It visualizes a state where the scaffolding of our temporal world just falls away. We rely so much on time and space to hide. We can hide in the dark. We can hide in the future. We can hide in the busyness of the present. But when those dimensions are removed, there is nowhere to hide. It forces a state of resurrection. It leaves only the moral reality standing.
And in that moment, the source describes the scene. The earth will shine with the light of its Lord. Again, the interpretation here is fascinating. It's not just brightness.
No, it's not just lumens. It's not about visibility in the optical sense. The source interprets light as the full implementation of Allah's teachings. Specifically, it mentions human rights and justice.
That is a very specific definition of divine light.
It is. It suggests that light is truth. It is the clarity of absolute justice. When the earth shines with this light, it means there are no more shadows where injustice can hide. The record being placed open is perfect transparency. And the presence of prophets and witnesses isn't for a show trial. It's to validate that the guidance was given. It proves that humanity wasn't left in the dark. We had the map, we just chose not to read it.
This brings us to the final culmination, the outcomes, heaven and hell. And the source is very adamant that these are not arbitrary acts of divine favor or wrath.
This is so consistent with the entire Law of Requital theme we've been discussing. The outcomes are the necessary and inevitable consequences of cumulative actions. It's not about God being in a good mood or a bad mood on that specific day.
Let's look at hell first. The source describes it as the destination for those who oppose the truth and are arrogant.
It frames hell as a confirmation of denial. If you spent your entire existence denying truth, denying connection, denying the humanity of others, the ultimate consequence is a reality where you are separated from all of that. It is a state of isolation that you cultivated. You built a wall around yourself your whole life. Hell is just the wall becoming permanent.
And the garden. The source describes the keepers of the garden saying something very specific. You have done well, enter.
You have done well. That phrase implies the entry is a natural result of the doing well. It isn't a lottery ticket. It is a homecoming. It's a state one has prepared for themselves. The source calls it a direct reward for sincere effort and mindfulness.
It emphasizes the organic nature of the result. You aren't put there, you fit there.
Precisely. You fit there. If you've shaped your soul into a form that values peace, truth, and compassion, then paradise is the environment that matches your frequency. It resonates. If you haven't, well, it wouldn't be paradise for you, would it? It would be dissonant.
That brings us back to Surah Al-Zumar, verse 75. And you will see the angels surrounding the throne. The judgment between people will be in absolute justice.
The image of angels surrounding the throne represents the system working in perfect balance. It is the final verification that the machine, the divine system, has functioned exactly as designed. Absolute justice. No glitches, no biases, just the pure, unadulterated truth of what was done and what that action created.
So let's try to summarize this entire worldview. We started by saying this is a shift in perspective. We're moving from a courtroom drama to a universal law of physics.
Right. The source presents a universe that is just deeply rooted in accountability. Divine judgment isn't just a future promise we're waiting for. It's a present operational reality. We're living in it. We are swimming in the law of requital right now.
So what's the so what for the listener? Why does this matter on a Tuesday morning?
It matters because it empowers you. If the law of requital is active now, then every single moment is an opportunity to shape eternity. It moves us from a fear of punishment, a fear of a judge, to a profound and active sense of responsibility. It means your life is yours to build, you are the architect, the blueprint is justice, and the materials are your daily choices.
It takes the helplessness out of faith. You aren't just hoping for a good verdict, you're actively constructing the evidence.
And you're constructing the self that will receive that verdict.
That is a heavy, but also incredibly liberating thought. I want to leave the listener with this final provocation to mull over. If your current reality, your state of mind, your relationships, your peace, is being shaped by the energy of your past deeds, what reality are you constructing right now, in this moment, for your tomorrow?
And not just for your tomorrow, but for your eternity, because according to this text, they are one and the same trajectory.
A profound place to stop. Thank you for diving deep with us.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.